All right, Tony, we're doing a little warm up here before the full blown interview, but our audience is always just infatuated with what people are carrying, their everyday carry. So, with all the stuff you've been through, with all the experiences you've had, and all the different outfits that you've worked, what are you packing every day? Not just weapon, everything, medical, anything you got.
You know what, man? Hey, and this isn't down on anybody that goes far beyond me, and you don't have to carry much to go far beyond what I carry. Situational dependent, right? I know that's a goofy blanket statement, but I'll tell you, I carry much different than when I'm with Melissa in a city than when I'm just like bebopping around, our property in Harrells, North Carolina, right? Like the crime rate in Harrells, North Carolina is less than 0, right? Like,
yeah.
So around there, if I'm carrying, most of the time I carry a Glock 43 X. That's what I have on me right now, which is kind of cool with the little 15-round mags from Shield and stuff. Now I got this little gun. It's got as many rounds as a 19. And I want to be a little higher capacity when she's with me because, let's face it, enemy most likely course of action says that if you're trying to pick someone to mug, I'm probably not the profile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Diesel pickup. No, I don't have stickers on the back, but it's pretty obvious, that I'm a country boy, and I'm not not the biggest dude on the block, but I'm also not a little tiny guy. So I don't think that, I'm not the typical target, right? Some heroin dude wants his freaking fix. Is he going to try and take $20 from me? But the second she's with me, well, bad people know that now we're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because we have something that we care about. So yeah, I'll up to, a Glock with a light on it or something like that. If she's with me and we're going into the city, especially at dark or whatever. In my truck, at any given time, there might be 2 carbines, 4 pistols, I teach, so the truck's always got gear in it, a bolt gun, etc. But yeah, as far as on me, sock P dagger, simple, simple little knife.
Do you have that on you right now?
Yeah. Freaking, the simple
nice
little sock P dagger, man. Greg Thompson, the sock P guy, freaking came up with this. So Greg Thompson, came up with the sock P dagger and the whole sock P program. It's a cool little dagger, man. It doesn't take a whole lot of training, So like Melissa has one. It goes in your Molly. The Fit Riley and Molly. So it's just a great little piece of equipment. It's not very expensive. And then, like I said, it just doesn't take a whole lot of training. You just poke somebody a bunch of times and hopefully deter them from whatever it was they set out to do in the beginning. And then as far as like a knife goes, I actually carry, and I don't have it on me, typically, I don't have it on me right now, the outdoor edge knives. They're the ones that you can pull the whole blade out of. It's basically a razor blade.
Oh, okay. I've not seen these.
Yeah,
what is it called?
They're made by Outdoor Edge.
Outdoor Edge.
Yeah, so if like hunters out there will recognize the Havilon blades. They're like the little X-Acto blades knives.
Yeah.
And you clean an animal with them quick, and they're razor blades. But they're those little tiny X-Acto razor blades. So it's real easy to break one, and now it's in your meat. You know what I mean? You lose a razor blade in an animal you're cleaning that you intend on eating. Well, now that you can't risk that cut, or you got to put a metal detector on it or whatever, so that's bad. But these outdoor edge knives, it's a 3.5-inch blade, and the whole blade is a razor blade. They cost like $28. A pack of 10 blades is like $6. And some guys will say, well, why don't you sharpen knives? Because I don't have time, man. You know what I mean?
I get
I was
that.
taught to. You know what
Finally,
I mean?
somebody that agrees with me.
I'm like, I was taught to sharpen knives as a baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have time to sharpen a knife, dude. It takes me 2 seconds to swap this blade out. And a couple of people were like, well, would you really be able to use that for self-defense? And I was like, that's an excellent question, because it's, And so I stuck it through the hide of a mule deer. And I was like, well, that's good enough for me. you know, and it is a razor blade, so slashing or whatever. But that's not what it's for. It's for cutting stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's a tool. The little sock P dagger is for self-defense, and I carry that weak side, you know, gun side, stick you side. That way, if, you know, I am trying to fight for a gun, you know, I've had a couple of self-defense situations where I wound up using my pistol, but in them, I had to fight first.
No shit.
Yeah.
Where did that happen in service or?
Yeah. A couple of cool instances. One in a hotel room up in northern Iraq where a meeting didn't go the way I wanted it to, and dude got pissed, put a gun in touched me with his pistol, sitting at a table in a hotel room.
Shit.
Yeah.
How many people were in there? How many?
It was him and his bodyguard.
And you and who? Just you?
Yeah.
Shit,
My
dude.
bud was downstairs, probably flirting with a pretty curd girl while he was sipping his coffee in the lobby. You know, I'm upstairs fighting for my life. You know, it's funny too because, you know, people always say just make space. I was on the 6th story, man. What was I gonna do? Jump out the window?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, my gun, I was, you know, Northern Iraq, man, I was wearing a suit. And my gun was in my computer bag right at my feet. I mean, I could see it. And he's got this, and it was insulting, to be honest with you, because it was a Pakistani knockoff Beretta. And I'm like, dude, if you're going to shoot me in the face, please use a nicer firearm. You know, I'm feeling so insulted right now. So in all seriousness, he put his gun up, and at that point I was like, come on, man, that's not how this should go. So I went for mine. As I was bringing it up, he stood up and shoved it was like a little aluminum, like 1960s aluminum crappy table, you know, with crappy little furniture, you know. And as he stood up, shoved the table into me, and I broke one round, and it malfunctioned the gun, and the round hit him right here, but not from art or anything like that. So it changed his behavior a little bit, but not really in a bad way. Like, he was ready to fight at that point. It got serious real quick, and his bodyguard, it was a little hotel room, man, and his bodyguard's kind of, you know, leaned up against the door there, and he's like, "Oh, holy crap, they're fighting," you know. And as he stood up, he wound up, I grabbed him and he stood up, and we wound up on my back, table and furniture. I'm still in the chair. My head's up against the space heater. So I got burnt all up the back of my neck and back of my head. It was, you know, crappy wall space heater or whatever. Not space heater, I guess a wall heater. And his bodyguard runs up, starts shooting. I could feel the overpressure and the heat. It was in my face. And the only reason he missed is because I had his boss by the head, trying to put his boss's head between me and his muzzle. And I'm whacking away, and it was like, ka-chunk. I felt that Glock go in the battery. I was like, hell yeah. Click. Nothing in the chamber. And I racked it right down his back and bodyguard him. 2 shots.
No shit.
And so this is 5 years, 6 years into the war. So it's not my first fight. It's the first time I was behind the curve and truly fighting, you know, in a defensive way. It wasn't like, you know, I'd been on many targets before.
Yeah.
And I wound up standing in a corner of that hotel trying to text my buddy. You know, trying to catch my breath, not to poop myself, you know. And I was like, holy crap, I'm going to walk out of here. And then we had to clean up the mess, and then the news story wasn't very good, you know.
Did you learn anything from that experience? Anything you would have done different?
I think for quite a while after that, I didn't carry in the bag. My gun was on me.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was Northern Iraq. And, you know, as well as I do, in that time frame, when we could walk around up there. You didn't even need a gun in Kurdistan, you know. So instead of carrying on me, I carried it in my computer bag everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think after that, I carried on me a little more strictly. especially when I was dealing with, some of those shadier assets and stuff.
Damn, you always hear the saying, you don't need it until you need it. And there it is right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
You don't need it until you need it.
Well, and
And
the
then you
whole
wish you had
fighting
it.
thing, I tell guys all the time, right? Like, and I used to approach things like this. I would say, this is my number one weapon. Of course, it's arguable how well it works. And then I got these. I got a knife and I got a gun. If I can't solve it with the first two, right? I ought to be able to solve it with my brain and just leave. But like I said, in that case, and in another situation I had to defend myself, man, I had to fight first. There was no just drawing your gun. There's no sub-second, none of that,
Yeah.
Sub-second draws or any of that.
The
It wasn't
IG
like
bullshit.
that, no facing off, ready, go. It was, a fist fight. So when I'm talking to guys and girls, I'm like, man, you need to be able to strike with both hands and some type of get up off the ground. At a minimum, be able to do that stuff. Maybe even learn a kick if you get time. But be able to throw hands, at least a jab. Because that's just one of the things when I'm working with folks in self-defense. I used to be left-handed. Got hurt, had to switch to right-handed. So I'm kind of a switch hammer. I'm pretty ambidextrous. And I'm probably very ambidextrous, so that would be an understatement. I'm still mostly left-handed, right? It's genetic. But right-handed guys tend to have really weak hands, and if they haven't trained some type of jab or using the hand, they don't have a very effective left punch. Well, if you're going to draw, I'm like, if I start punching you in the face, are you going to be able to get to your pistol? Are you going to cover up? What are you going to do? Right? I'll start landing punches, and not just me. Like, think about the average predator. Like, what type of dude would attack you? Right? Maybe crazy, drug, or whatever, but pretty confident dude, right? So I imagine any dude that wants to square off with me and take my wallet is going to be a pretty formidable fellow who can probably punch.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing with when it comes to EDC is I'm like, hey, man, learn some basic strikes and how to get up off the ground, some basic BJJ. Because guns aren't the end-all, be-all. And, it's funny, I said, this, these, that, and that. I actually added something to my EDC. I didn't even think about this. And not really my EDC, it's in my truck. But Melissa has it in her purse. Melissa carries a SOC P dagger. And she's got a Shield Plus now. She likes M&Ps. And, but now she also has a can of bear spray in her purse. And I have a can of bear spray in my truck. And we were in a movie theater. Some kids were misbehaving, throwing change and stuff like that, and just being kids. Well, I can't beat up 14-year-olds for being buttholes. You can't clearly, you know what I mean? Even if you escalate it, but at the same time, and they were 14 to 17, 3 or 4 of them. And let's face it, 4 14 to 17-year-olds against one of us, one of them has a knife, well, you're losing. You might get pretty badly effed up. And so I had to rethink it. I was like, well, I can't beat these kids up, right? I can't shoot them. I can't stab them. There's this gap in my EDC. And I was like, Mace. And my buddy goes, how about bear spray? And I went, even better. Like, mace or pepper spray, cool. If bear spray is good for brown bears, it's got to be good for shitheads.
14-year-olds.
Yeah. Shithead 14-year-olds. They're going to learn a lesson. And, dude, so I had never messed with bear spray before. I carry a 44 Magnum in the backcountry for bears, right? Dude, this bear spray will spray like 40 feet, and it's foam. Like, it makes pepper spray look like daggone hairspray. So that's a thing I am carrying these days. And it's funny because, like, a good handful of my buddies are like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a non-lethal engagement, or something like that, to me, that kind of bridges the gap between these and a knife. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing because, like I said, we can't just kill anyone. You can't go lethal over arguments at the gas pump or stuff like that. And people are acting crazy these days. We see it all the time, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. So, if a young kid who's just being a punk, who's borderline, I feel like bear spray teaches a lesson, and no one has to go to jail and no one has to go to the hospital. And hopefully that kid will learn a lesson and straighten out his ways.
Yeah. That's good. I think I'm gonna incorporate that as well.
Because
Especially with
a
it's
lot
good
of
to hear.
criminals have been pepper sprayed. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when it came to Melissa, they're like, "Oh no, bro, bear spray is a whole different animal, right? It's concentrated, So, something to think about. That's where I'm at in life. But yeah, my EDC is not super crazy. My medical kit is in my truck. I don't carry a tourniquet on me. And Lord knows the internet might freak out for me saying this, but I wear a belt. And, whoever my patient is, if I roll up on somebody that needs a tourniquet, I'm going to be able to improvise, whether I got to rip their seatbelt out. I'm going to be able to make something. And another thing I think a lot of people don't always think when they think tourniquets, they think stop the bleed. Well, there's also slow the bleed.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
You know what I mean? If I can get it down to a trickle and get them to next level care, the hospital, a trauma center, and they lost half a pint of blood, they're fine. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I don't carry a tourniquet on me. Yes, I have trauma kits in the truck, but I don't carry it on me. When I'm teaching, there's one on my belt, but we're on a range. Again, situational dependent. But yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah.
I don't carry... In my truck is a set of plates and, one of my toolboxes in my truck or whatever, there's the, I'm away from home. But I usually see it as more of a, look, a coyote. That's really what the guns in my trucks are for is, a coyote or, something like that. But I don't live in the city anymore, man. And the threat level where I live is, you would have to look for trouble, You'd have to look for trouble where I live.
More and more guys are moving out into the country, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm noticing.
I grew up country. The county I live in right now in North Carolina is very rural, but the county I grew up in, even more so. I mean, there are 12,000 people in the county I grew up in. There's one stoplight, and you don't really have. It's like for decoration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like traffic's not that bad.
Everybody knows each other.
Everybody, and when you're a kid trying to misbehave, everybody knows everybody is annoying. But when you're an adult, everybody knows everybody. That's a community, right? We throw that word around a lot, the soft community, the Second Amendment community. Well, I grew up in a community where everyone in town knew each other. We all had cookouts together. The folks down the streets were my parents' best friends, the guys we hunted with. And now where I live in Harrells, I developed the exact same thing as soon as I got there. Made friends with the neighbor farmer, and people are always, like preparedness, I guess kind of segue from, EDC, like that whole preparedness. My neighbor is a farmer of hogs, cattle, grain, blueberries, blackberries, and they're starting raspberries next year. And they also grow like zucchini and squash. And,
Oh, wow.
and they grow everything.
They're set.
So we have a cool, mutual relationship. Like if the world goes to hell, they're going to supply food and I'll help supply the security,
What do you think more and more and more, especially the way we're seeing the world, now, everything in the country as well. I mean, everything seems to be so fragile now. More and more people are looking at preparedness and how to prepare, and a lot of these people have no idea how to get started. What would you say, without getting too into the thick of things, what are, let's just say, top 3 things to start for somebody, for a cubicle worker, 9-to-5 guy that has no idea, doesn't own a firearm? I mean, we're talking greenest of the green. What would be your 3 recommendations to get started in the preparedness on a minimum budget?
Right up front, it's none of the tactical stuff. You got to think more on the, if you want to use a like more military terminology, more on the strategic level, network community. You know, what's that old saying? One is none. You know, I have a community, and all of them have guns, and all of them bring something to the table, right? Like my neighbors, they're farmers, and then, you know, I've made good friends with the gas company people, so they've got diesel and gas, you know, hundreds of thousands of gallons, right? So I think one of the biggest, you know, we hear guys talking about, you know, what's in your bug out bag? I'm like, I don't have one. Well, now at the same time, I do recognize that a lot of us had, you know, preparedness training. I know that I can go places and commandeer things, right? I'm not worried about bug out vehicles because I see it like this. If you're trying to overland to somewhere more safe, because whatever reason you had to leave your home, and I don't see that happening, right? Like I don't, you know, unless the world went nuclear. I live close enough. I'm right between Lejeune and Fort Bragg, so you know the chances are if we go nuclear, I won't have to worry about much of anything. Yeah. You know, I don't need a plan for that. But you know, if for some reason I had to relocate, I hear guys talking about like overland vehicles and bug out bags and this kind of stuff, and I'm like, well, if I need to leave my house, I'm going to throw in my truck what I need to leave. Right? It's probably not going to be like, oh God, I got to go right now. I'm going to try to stay put because I have everything I need there to live and survive for weeks upon weeks. So it's kind of funny, you know, I see it. If I am going to take a vehicle, when it runs out of gas, I'm going to get a different one, you know, because if the world's gone that bad, there are going to be fuel lines, right? So that gets kind of weird because now you're talking about, you know, carjacking or stealing a vehicle. Now you're illegal. You know what? There's so many variables to this equation. You know, it's not simple to answer. But yeah, I guess to circle back to your question, that cubicle city person, it's going to come down to network and community. Because I mean, I hear guys talking about, well, we're going to head to the mountains, and I'm like, have you talked to the people that live in the mountains about that? Like, do you have friends there?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no. I'm like, when was the last time you went camping and lived out of your bug out bag in the mountains in the wintertime?
Yeah.
Or in the middle of July, right? Are you prepared for the insects? Are you prepared? Right?
Yeah.
And their eyes just get like, there's all these parts of that equation they've never even considered because they're not outdoor people, you know? I'm pretty confident you can put me in the woods anywhere in North America, well, probably anywhere in the world, and I'm going to be okay for a week. I'm going to find stuff to eat, you know, and I know how to hunt. You know, animals, you know, I can hunt with snares. I know how to build traps, all that stuff. Man, when I say I was a little white trash redneck kid growing up, yeah, man, I mean, there was times that, you know, to put food on the table, we shot deer, you know. So learning to hunt. My dad was you know, he grew up in the mountains of Western Virginia. His dad was a coal miner. And they put food on the table from hunting. So I was lucky to have a lot of that handed down to me. I mean, they were taking me coon hunting.
Nice.
When I was a baby. I couldn't keep up. Well, you couldn't hunt at nighttime, bro. You know? I had to learn to follow that dog, to listen to the dogs barking and follow, because I couldn't keep up with the guys, you know, but they were doing it on purpose. Now, at the time, I was just a young, you know, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid trying to keep up with adults in the woods, chasing these dogs that are chasing coons. And, but looking back, man, the lessons learned, you know, there are guys going through our special operations, like candidacy schools, like SFAS, who've never spent a night in the woods. And now it's like, go land nav all night long. Well, for me, that wasn't a big deal, right? Like I spent nights in the woods as a little kid. So I was lucky there. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, you know, I don't know that the average city slicker, how can they possibly learn all the things that country boys learn?
They can't.
They can't. They really can't growing up. But you can team up with one.
Well, you know, there's another way to, if you don't mind, I'm going to interject. You know, I don't know all of it either. I've been watching your stuff on the gram, and I mean, you're building your own house. I don't know how the hell to build a house. I don't know how to run electrical, but I will say this: you know, there are a lot there is a lot of good reading material on all of this stuff, and it's not all tactics and shit. I found this book series. It's called Back to the Basics, and they teach you everything from gardening to building a house to trapping to fishing to everything. And I have a lot of those skills, but when it comes to building and gardening, I'm weak.
Yeah, I
and
definitely
I don't have time
am there
for
too.
it. And if that happens, internet's going to be gone.
For sure.
And you're not going to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have anything to do but quickly read and learn what the fuck you need to learn to survive. And so I would recommend getting a set of books, maybe some medical stuff, that Back to the Basics
For sure.
series that I was talking about, some hunting, how to clean it, all that kind of stuff. I think
It's so funny too, man, because none of the stuff, like framing my house or skinning an animal, right? I mean, it takes me 40 minutes to skin out an elk, 15 minutes on a deer. It's fast. Of course, I've been doing it since I was a baby, but I can show you how to do it. And it's so simple. All of this stuff, like we were talking about running bulldozers and stuff at breakfast this morning, right? I'm not afraid to try. My dad raised me my dad was not a hugs and kisses type of dude, right? But he put food on the table. He worked a lot. His teaching methods were probably not awesome. Right? His style was, hey, boy, you need to do this, this, and this before I get home. And I'd be like, Dad, I don't know how to do that or that. And I'm not sure about the third one, but I'll try. And his answer was always, figure it out. Looking back, that was the lesson. Figure it out. Try. Just try. So I am so grateful to that dude to have raised me with the mindset that I can do anything. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get it. I'm not going to be an astronaut or the president of the United States. Hell, I can't even be a congressperson. But I'm just not afraid to try. Like I said, called up a place. I need a D6 bulldozer and a 325 excavator. I'll figure out how to run it when it gets here.
Yeah.
And I did. I mean, don't get me wrong, I ran them when I was little, but you're talking about 30-year-old machines versus you getting a bulldozer now and it's got a computer screen. You're like, all right, I'm just pushing buttons till things started moving, and next thing you know, I'm clearing land.
Yeah.
Do it yourself mindset, man. I mean, like you said, the internet will be gone, but in the meantime,
everything you need right there.
Humankind has ever come up with is right here.
Yep.
I mean, I wish I could think of something that I can't YouTube. The only thing I can come up with, and it always happens, the only thing I didn't do in my career that I wanted to do was fly. I had a flight packet in and thought I was going to go fly, and I fell and broke my back. And I thought my military career was over. So I ETS'd, went over to the agency, right? So I never went back. I wished I had of. But whenever the Black Hawk guys, the Chinooks, or whoever the pilots that are flying for us, I'm always like, can I fly it? And their answer, dude, is always the same thing. If you can figure out how to start it. And I was like, let me get in the seat, And then when you get in, I start watching. I'm like, one of these days, I'm going to figure out how to start one of these things. And then I had a client come for long range, and he's an Apache pilot. He basically gave me step-by-step instruction on how to start a Black Hawk.
Nice.
So I'm like, next time, one of these dudes, I'm going to get this thing fired up. They're going to have to let me fly it, No. But yeah, I mean, everything we need to know is right there. You want to learn to frame a house, man?
Yeah.
There are so many. I tell tactical guys, you want to learn how to shoot better. How many videos are you going to get on pistol grip if you Google it or YouTube search it? Try framing interior doors and see what pops up.
Yeah.
You'll have a million different videos to watch. So to me, it's not about information available. It's about whether or not someone actually wants to learn stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, I know when it comes to hunting and trapping that stuff, I'm pretty good to go. But gardening, that is not my thing. And books, we've started purchasing books because, like you said, if things do go bad, we're not going to have the internet. We won't have that YouTube.
You'll still have the knowledge available.
Right. So books. And I'm lucky because, Melissa has started growing. We're at almost a company level of chickens now. 2 donkeys, not that you would eat donkeys, but I guess you could if you got really hungry. Dogs, all that stuff. But, she's doing the gardening thing. She's composting the donkey's poo, turning it into fertilizer for a garden and all that kind of stuff. And, she's not a into the world type of person, but she's also a realist, very conservative, very able-bodied type person. So she sees the writing on the wall as well. And
a lot of people are coming to it.
Yeah, but she also just enjoys it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. My aunts, they were, it was quote unquote woman's work to keep the garden and to keep the lawn and the flowers planted, to knit and crochet and all that. So Melissa's actually hanging out with my aunts, learning all that stuff, and enjoying it.
That's cool.
It's old school craft. It's making things with your hands, which I've always found very rewarding. I like building stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny because I hate tinkering, right? Like I hate tinkering on guns, right? Like little screws and stuff. And part of that's because I can't hold on to things very well anymore. It's just frustrating. But like framing that house, every day I get down and look at it and be like, yeah, cool.
That's
cool,
awesome.
Cool, So yeah, to that person who's looking, you got to start with the network. And city folk are horrible about it. They don't know their neighbors. And their neighbors don't bring anything to the table either. So it's got to be that network. You got to find people that know how to do the stuff that you'll need if everything goes to hell. I mean, and I think, a likely scenario, and we've seen it around the country, the grid failures.
Yeah.
Man, it doesn't take but a couple of days without electricity, and Americans are going to lose their minds.
Yeah. I just did an episode on that, and it was...
Yeah.
We're hanging on by a thread.
Yeah, it's so old and outdated, and I mean, let's face it. Even like our road infrastructure, if whatever bad guy organization, China, doesn't matter, terrorists, if they attacked 10 bridges on the East Coast, and I don't mean blow them up, I mean like pull a tractor trailer full of gasoline on top of them, open the valve, and set it on fire. Well, that bridge is finished.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're talking about chaos, And couple that with, let's say, a hurricane, when everyone's trying to leave Florida or leave North Carolina and or Georgia and all the interstates. You're talking about some pretty crazy happenings in places like Atlanta, Charlotte. These cities will absolutely destroy themselves.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why America continues to survive and continues to be able to go down this path that we're on, is we're so big. Katrina hits in Louisiana and doesn't affect me one bit in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Raging wildfires in California doesn't really affect me in North Carolina. North Carolina floods. Sucks for all of us. You don't even know about it in Nashville. Our sheer size, I think, protects us in many ways, but it's also leading to our demise, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're so big that people won't organize. If we were half the size that we were, and our government and these clowns that are quote unquote running our country, these so-called representatives, I don't think that's the right word. They don't even call themselves representatives. They call themselves Congress people, right?
Yeah.
Because they know they don't represent us. I think if we were closer together and what they were doing were affecting a more condensed or a densely populated America, Americans would have already been like, nope, y'all are done. You're fired. I don't know.
I don't know either, man.
It's like I have the answers,
yeah,
but I do not know how to rally the people in the U.S. to do the right thing. I try.
It's just complacency. I think it all comes down to complacency and comfortability.
Luxuries.
We'll talk about that in your episode, but I did want to tell you, I got a friend over at SIG. He got really excited that you were coming. That's why I asked about your EDC. And so he wanted me to show you something. This is their latest, I guess, EDC type weapon, and I just wanted me to show it to you, get your thoughts on it.
I can't even get in the box.
Yeah, so
is this their macro, right?
yeah, that's the SIG P365 macro. So there's a business card in there. I wanted me to give it to you. I don't know what he's gonna do, but I think he's.
I did a review, and I'm not good at gear reviews. Because I'm like, whatever, man, it's a gun. Does it make a loud noise when I press the trigger? Cool,
Yeah.
It'll work. Because, go around the world, and sometimes I have to acquire guns where I go. And, heck, it wasn't that long ago. I was in Haiti, and my bud picked me up from the airport, and he had an FN and a Rossi 5-shot 308. Not
What?
308, excuse me. 38, not 308. 38 special.
Nice.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And he's like, it's all I got. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I'm using. I hope this FN works, because this 38 special is not what I want to be running around with. But we did this micro pistol review, and I had never shot one of these before. And one of the guys brought it out, one of my friends that works at a gun store. And I was like, holy crap. This little gun shoots like a real full-size gun.
Yeah.
These little dudes are no joke. Really cool gun, man. They're not tiny, but the fact that they're thin makes them so daggone. Yeah. There's a reason why this gun's so popular, man.
Yeah.
It's like just the right size,
When they've done a couple versions of the 365. What I really like about how they designed it, I don't know if you know this, but they actually designed the magazine first for the 365.
I did not
because
know
they
that.
wanted, remember the original one, I think held 12 rounds plus one, right?
Okay.
And so they designed the magazine first and then designed the gun around the magazine. And that was the first, I may be wrong, I don't think I am, but I believe that the 365 was the first double stack, what do they call it? Subcompact, pistol.
Micro, I don't know.
And
all these labels.
yeah, well, they really revolutionized, the subcompact market.
Yeah, we've seen it now, right? Of course, Glock's always behind the times, and Shield brought out their magazines for the Glock, and because they made them out of metal, there's room for more bullets in them.
Yeah.
And because I still am in 20th group and still work for the government sometimes, I've got to stay on the Glock.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot my 2011s. They're a lot of fun, but I always maintain my proficiency with the Glock. Everyone around me is shooting SIG.
Really?
Everyone around me is shooting SIG. Dustin, my buddy that helps me teach the 320 series. We've got a female that we just brought on to help teach some of the female type stuff, and not just female stuff, because she's amazing. She's a great shooter, great instructor. SIGs, and this is what they carry.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, call Jason up and maybe he can hook you up with one of those.
Hell yeah. Jason?
Yeah.
Jason,
business card's right in there.
Cool.
For his contact info.
Nice.
But
Yeah, man, SIG. They have, who would have thought 10 years ago, because you guys had, 226s, right? Y'all had the SIGs.
Yeah.
And, we were running, Berettas or whatever. And who would have thought back then that SIG was going to be like the number one contractor?
Right?
They, amazing.
yeah. Well, let's get into your episode.
Hell yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.